Somewhere along the way, we started believing that feeling tired, inflamed, anxious, or disconnected was just part of life. But what if that is not normal, but it's just common? Today, we're talking about Hashimoto's and thyroid health. But really, this is a conversation about what happens when the body has been trying to get your attention for a long time and what becomes possible when you finally start to listen. So come join us. Women's Wellness Authority is a podcast for women who want to come home to themselves, physically, emotionally, and energetically, while exploring grounded, root-level approaches to healing. In each episode, we explore the many layers of wellness through thoughtful conversations with experts, healers, and practitioners, helping you better understand what your body is communicating. This podcast is about empowerment, offering practical tools and wisdom to help you thrive in all areas of your life. Let's rewrite the rules of wellness together, step into your power, reclaim your health, and discover what it means to truly thrive from the inside out. Welcome back to Women's Wellness Authority. I am your host, Diana Ruskowski, and somewhere along the way, we started believing that feeling tired, inflamed, anxious, or just not like ourselves was actually normal. But the truth is, the way you are feeling is not normal. It's just become common. So we tend to ignore it. And for so many women, especially when it comes to thyroid health, those symptoms often get overlooked, they get dismissed, or they're labeled as something we just have to live with. But your body does not have to operate that way. It communicates, it adapts, and then when something is off, it's not random, it's actually a signal. So today we're going to talk about how to better understand those signals, what the thyroid actually does, how autoimmune conditions like Hashimoto's can develop when things are out of balance, the symptoms that often get missed, and the small adjustments that can start to uncover root cause of what's really going on. So my guest today is Kathy Feser, a Hashimoto's symptom coach based in Devon, Alberta, Canada. And Kathy's journey began with her own diagnosis of Hashimoto's, along with experiencing severe depression and eczema. All symptoms that really led her to start asking deeper questions and really trying to figure out what's going on in her body. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So Kathy, welcome.
Thanks, Diana. Thanks for inviting me to be here today with you.
So I want to talk about your story because I think it's really, really powerful because like so many other women in this space, a lot of my listeners and a lot of people who end up becoming practitioners, your personal experience is really driving what you're going to do today or what you do for work. So can you walk us through what your journey looked like and ultimately what brought you into being a coach on this specific topic?
Yes, absolutely. I had symptoms that my body was trying to tell me for over 30 years, and I ignored them until one night I was keeled over on the floor in the fetal position. I was 39 years old. I'm 45 now. And at that point, I knew something needed to change. And some of the symptoms that I experienced at that point were stomach upset, irritability, emotional swings or mood swings, eczema, heavy and painful periods, hives, and actually those started early in my 20s. So the body's always kind of signaling us, and we tend to sometimes ignore those signals. I also had allergies and like a phlegmy cough, especially after eating, and lifelong depression. I'm one of those people, or I grew up telling myself that I got to push through, I got to get through these symptoms, and I ignored them. And I honestly thought that everyone kind of dealt with these symptoms, in one form or another, especially depression. And honestly, when I changed my foods, my life changed. And I told myself that I would never get that way again. When I changed my foods, my depression totally lifted, and I didn't really know a day without it. A little bit more on these symptoms because I think it's important to share with women because these symptoms start early on and then they progress throughout as we age. The symptoms actually started to progress and worsen in my 30s. So I gained 50 pounds. I had brain fog. Yeah, that was so bad that I couldn't remember simple words in conversations like pen or dog. My eczema flares worsened and my irritable bowels felt out of control. And this was like the final straw. I could barely make it to the washroom in time. I'd be breathing and holding my breath and really praying that I would make it there in time.
So, like, through all of these things, are you going to doctors and trying to uncover, or are you kind of telling yourself other people have got to feel this way, like, or maybe this is just my normal and I just have to keep on going?
So at this point, I am not going to any doctors.
Okay.
And
So you're just like
so
silently suffering.
I'm silently suffering because I'm just conditioned to push through it. It's not a big deal and that sort of thing. And it wasn't until actually my mother-in-law, and it was actually being cold all the time, which she brought to my attention, like, maybe you should get that checked out. And so I went to the doctor only because someone else suggested I should. And so I'm like, okay, so I went to the doctor and my blood work came in at 4.0, which is in within the normal range for thyroid stimulating hormone. And so I went home with a medication and started taking it right away. And I gave it about 6 months and I'm like, really, this really isn't helping. I went back to my doctor, my family physician, and he said, there's nothing else really we can do here. So I didn't really accept that at this point. I decided to go to a naturopathic doctor. And what I discovered was really cool. I was actually diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And I know that sounds crazy to say that it's cool. It's cool in that I had another
Ooh,
path forward.
answers.
I have
Yeah.
another path forward. I didn't know what the answers or what that path would look like, but I could start researching. And so that's when I really started to begin to take my health into my own hands. And with the naturopathic doctor, I changed my foods as well. So within literally 3 weeks of meeting with my naturopathic doctor and changing my foods, I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. And it wasn't the weight that I was worried about, it was the way I felt.
Right.
And in that 3 weeks, my life totally changed. Like I said, my depression lifted and that sort of thing. So I decided to go back to school because I'm like, I need to know how and why foods really changed my life. And I want to help other people because I can't be the only one that,
Uh-huh.
has experienced this. I went back to school and I learned firsthand how to heal myself from the inside out. And now I get to guide women over 40 regain their energy and release the stubborn weight naturally. So their body is actually working for them and not against them anymore.
Okay. So I have so many questions. One is, and maybe this is just to start basic. And, I'm going to fully admit, I don't know as a woman, what does my thyroid do? So maybe even like just the basics. What does the thyroid do within our own body?
So the thyroid is part of a much larger system, and it's called the endocrine system. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because there's so many glands within that system, and the thyroid is one of them, and they all talk to one another. So when you hear people talk about thyroid or adrenal or that sort of thing, it's all connected. So it's all important. This system, this endocrine system, really regulates other body systems, including our growth hormone, our metabolism, our sexual development, our stress response, our mood, sleep, and blood sugar. So you can imagine how important this thyroid and the whole endocrine system, how important it is to make sure it's functioning optimally. So it secretes hormones.
The thyroid does.
Yes, the thyroid, but also the endocrine system. Each of these glands secrete different hormones, and so does the thyroid. The thyroid secretes T4 and T3.
Okay.
As you could imagine, if one of these endocrines are off balance, they could affect each other and how the body functions as a whole. So the thyroid gland is located in the front of the neck here, and it's U-shaped. Yeah, it's U-shaped. It's actually quite large, and it's around
Oh,
the
interesting. I always thought it was in the back. Okay. So it's
no,
usually
it's in the it's a gland with lobes, and it's lying on either side of the trachea. So that particular gland produces hormones necessary to regulate the metabolism. This is why when the thyroid isn't functioning properly, we're going to experience symptoms like slow metabolism, which is fatigue and that sort of thing.
And I think you mentioned this to me too. So within the glands, within the endocrine system, the thyroid is last in line. Is that right? So like if I'm stressed and my body is in a fight or flight state, right? My body thinks I'm getting chased by a bear. My body is prioritizing certain glands or organs within my body to, like, keep my adrenaline going so that I can fight the bear, right? But there's no bear.
Hmm.
It's life.
Yeah.
And the thyroid, from I believe what I've read, takes a back seat. Is that accurate?
It's really the whole endocrine
The
system.
whole system takes a back seat. Okay.
Yes. So the thyroid does take a back seat. The adrenal glands actually kick in overdrive and we release a bunch of cortisol within the system. And so everything malfunctions. So I wouldn't say everything takes a back seat. They just go in overdrive in different ways, in various ways.
Yeah. Which creates imbalance, right? And then when there's
Yes.
imbalance, you start seeing these like physical symptoms. You mentioned like a bunch of things that stress, diet, like all of those things are all aspects of everyday life. And in terms of like all the different systems, I mean, I feel like in every conversation I had, and I just had this yesterday when I was recording with someone who does like sacral therapy, she just said, every system's intertwined and works. And it's incredible to me how much stress impacts every level of the body, energetically, physically, mentally.
Yes, absolutely. And, when our systems are overworking or overproducing, it really impacts the metabolism. So,
And that's why you saw such a shift when you changed your food.
yes,
Why?
yes, it impacts all body systems, including like body temperature, your bowel function, energy production. Like, this is a major system that I think people
They underestimate.
underestimate it. I really didn't know myself how important our thyroid and entire endocrine system is. It impacts every body function in the body.
When you went back to school then and you started learning like it regulates body temperature, were you like, oh, that's why I was cold all the time? And it regulates
100%.
gut, which is connected to your brain. And you're like, that's maybe why I had such chronic depression. And the eczema, like, was it like light bulbs that would pop?
It explained everything. And like the menstrual regularity, like I was having extreme heavy periods and painful periods, and it explained that. And the minute I changed my foods, I don't have pain anymore. My mood has come back. Like I feel great. And it's just incredible. So I do believe that people need to know more about how important this system really is in our body.
I know there's a couple autoimmune diseases that occur around the thyroid, whether the thyroid is under functioning, over functioning. So we've talked a little bit about Hashimoto's, but can you maybe cover those and explain, maybe the symptoms of each of those so it can give maybe someone general a better understanding?
Yeah, so just a little bit more about hypothyroid because it can get confusing. Like, is it hypothyroid or is it Hashimoto's? Usually it starts off with hypothyroid, which is underactive, and it involves a decreased production of the thyroid hormones T4 and T3.
Okay.
So this reduces the metabolic rate, lowering your energy levels. So this is why we feel tired and our body systems slow down. Hypothyroid includes autoimmune reaction, which is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and that's what I have. So hyperthyroid is an overactive thyroid, and it is an increased production of thyroid hormones. So the T4 and T3 is being produced too much, and the results are increased metabolic rate. This is called Graves' disease, or like a toxic goiter could cause this, cancer, subacute thyroiditis, pituitary gland malfunctions, and exposure to toxins.
You have I want to make sure I get this right. Hyper. So it's
Hy-
uh,
yes, it's overproduced. Yeah. Yeah.
overproducing the T4 and what was that? What else was it?
T3, T4 and
T4 and
T3.
T3. And like naturally your thyroid is supposed to produce those. If your body can't use it, it's naturally supposed to detoxify. But the thyroid in that case is overproducing beyond the body's capability to sort of
Yes.
detox, right?
Yeah, and some of the symptoms there include heart palpitations. Like, so imagine your body's kind of in overdrive. You've got a fast heartbeat, you've got heat intolerance, you've got nervousness, weight loss, increased appetite, muscle weakness, insomnia. So look at all of these symptoms: loose bowel movements, light or absent menstrual periods, hair loss, fatigue at night.
Could you have hives too, or reactions on your skin, or no?
Well, that would be probably your immune system lowering and then your allergies kicking in. So, when you have an autoimmune disease, your immune system is lowered. So, then you are open to things like allergies and that sort of thing. It opens the
You're like
doors
more
for allergies.
susceptible, right? Because it's weaker.
Exactly. And then hypothyroid symptoms would include fatigue and weight gain, because imagine your body's like slowing down. So imagine that it's difficult to lose weight. You don't have the motivation to get to the gym. And what I'm hearing lately that hurts when I hear it from these women is they feel lazy. And it's like, you're not lazy, it's the hormones.
I
And
heard.
we don't have the motivation like we used to. We used to be super motivated, but when things get dysregulated, we lose that drive and that energy. And this is where depression and that sort of thing can sneak in.
With Graves, if my metabolism speeds up, then do I ever like just feel like I'm never fulfilled? Like I just keep eating and eating and eating?
You have an increased appetite,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
but you don't hold on the weight. You don't have a problem burning the weight.
And I can see when you're outlining these various symptoms why these symptoms can be disregarded as maybe an issue with the thyroid, because for women who are in our stage of life, you could be like, you're just going through perimenopause or menopause. So like you're gonna put on the weight and you might feel more tired. Your hormones are naturally going to be out of balance. But that could be the case, but also you could have an under or overactive thyroid. That's the real root cause of why maybe your symptoms at this time are more severe. Because I do feel like I think a lot of our symptoms as women are just disregarded, or that's just how it is. And to your point, you were taught to just push through and take the medicine or don't take the medicine and like just suffer silently, which I'm so glad that you're creating your business and helping women realize that no, in fact, you can make some subtle shifts that could change the trajectory of your life.
Yes.
So the fatigue and the weight changes, is brain fog a component of it at all? Because I feel like that's another thing I hear, especially for some of my friends right now.
Yeah, brain fog is definitely there. That usually happens over time as you have symptoms earlier on. The brain fog does start to increase, and it's really due to inflammation.
Mm.
I would say brain fog is definitely part of that, but I think the underlying cause of that could be more so inflammation. And the base of most or all disease is inflammation. And so that's why we can tie a lot of these symptoms with each other. Like there's a lot of overlapping symptoms among these different diseases that we see. And one of them is brain fog.
When I went in last year and started working with like a holistic doctor, I walked in thinking I have some issue with my thyroid because I gained a tremendous amount of weight in a short period of time. And I had other symptoms like you've mentioned. And it ended up actually being my cortisol levels that were the driver of all of those things. So I think had I not intervened, I would have gone down a path where I would have ended up with some autoimmune, because the inflammation in my body it's screaming. That was my signal. There's something 100% wrong. So I bring that up because I want to talk maybe a little bit about the nervous system. And we talked a little bit about it already, but the nervous system and the stress connection and how its relationship with the thyroid really impacts its overall function. So, can we talk about how stress really does, like the state of stress and being in a constant fight or flight state, really impact the thyroid?
This is such a great question, and it really brings us back to looking at the body as a whole versus treating specific organs or endocrine glands separately or independently of themselves. When you ask about stress and in being constant fight or flight, this brings the nervous system that is connected with our endocrine system, and the nervous system orchestrates the thyroid adrenal feedback loop. And our body has a ton of these loops. This is just one loop. So when we're stressed, it triggers the release of cortisol from the adrenal glands, increasing the release of estrogen, and this blocks the uptake of the thyroid hormones. So stress on the adrenal glands has a negative effect on the thyroid, reducing the uptake of thyroid hormone receptors.
Which are the T4 and
T4 and T3, yes.
okay.
So when our body is in constant fight or flight, we're always producing this cortisol, which in turn impacts thyroid hormone uptake and release. And over time, like you can imagine, if this is everyday life for people constantly being stressed, something's got to give.
Uh-huh.
And usually we see things malfunction or burn out.
Mm-hmm. So I have maybe a silly question that I know the answer to, but can your body then even really heal when it's in that mode?
So it's very difficult for your body to heal if it's in that mode.
Okay, so just to summarize, the connection between stress and the nervous system is really, if the body doesn't feel safe, it really can't effectively focus on the healing because there's complete imbalance, right?
Yes.
So I know we talked about it a little bit before about how a lot of these symptoms are normalized, but why do you think so many women that are dealing with thyroid issues today, Hashimoto's, Graves', don't really know that these are thyroid issues? Why do you think that is?
Yes, I would say it really goes back to chronic stress. Like, this is the number one thing for most disease and thyroid and Hashimoto's. With our fast paced life that we spoke about earlier, women are just juggling more on their plate more than ever with their careers, their families, and the pressures and expectations. And if you put any past traumas on that as well, people are working through that, whether they actually
We're
realize it
not
or
working
not.
through it.
Exactly. So we've really disconnected from our natural rhythm.
Yeah, this is something I feel like as I'm working on stuff for myself keeps coming up, right? And I think about hundreds of years ago, I think to myself, like, every woman's worked. That's not the case. Or every other person's doing this on their own. That's also maybe not the case. And hundreds of years ago, we didn't have all of these societal pressures. We didn't have to balance 9 plates. Maybe we were balancing 2. That's why we're seeing so many different chronic diseases now, is because I think stress is one factor, but there's, a million other different things. There's nutrition, like you mentioned, disconnecting from the natural rhythms you talked about. And we're not going to get too much into it today, but also environmental toxins and exposure, that all of those things compounded with each other are huge. Right. And we're
Yes.
seeing more impacts as a result. Okay. So if women are feeling really frustrated and they're being told everything looks normal, if they want to go into their doctor and say, hey, I just listened to a podcast, Kathy's like symptoms, like just, it's everything I had. How can they advocate for themselves and go into a doctor's office? Like, what should they be asking their doctor? What labs, blood work, whatever, should they be asking for and looking at to get answers?
Yes. So when you're going into the doctor's office, they typically only test for one blood biomarker, and that's thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. So, yes, you should get that done. But why it isn't enough is it really only shows one picture. TSH is a signal to make more or less thyroid hormone. It's measuring the communication, but it's not measuring the actual function. So that's why we want to get a bigger picture. So let's say you're within the normal range, you could ask for additional biomarkers, which is free T4, which is the main hormone that your thyroid produces. It's an inactive form of hormone, though. So we need free T3 as well, which is the active hormone in your body, where your body actually uses that for energy, metabolism, and brain function and that sort of thing. So TSH, free T4, free T3, and TPO antibodies. is what you'd want to ask for.
I have a question and I just want to share like how it was framed to me, and then maybe just you can confirm if that's accurate. When you get this blood work, you're given a range, which is considered normal, right? From a traditional medicine side. So say the range is like here, but then when I went to the functional doctor side, they said, well, yeah, you're in normal range, but you're not optimal. So like when I think about, because I love visualizations, optimal is within that normal range, but it's much smaller. And I obviously fell outside of that. So when you're in optimal range, that means your body's more in balance and everything is functioning the way it should. Is that an accurate representation of normal versus optimal?
Absolutely. And when you're in the normal range, like you said, you still may not be feeling optimal, right? When you're in that normal range. And so seeking somebody who can help you take further testing is what I'd recommend to help you get into that optimal range. You shared a little bit about your experience with the ranges. With me, I fell within the normal range.
Mhm.
But what I discovered with my naturopathic doctor is that I actually perform much better with my mental health and that sort of thing when I'm closer to a 1.5 or a 2. So there's no way I could have got there with my regular doctor, family
Yeah.
physician.
Yeah. And I was told the same. You're in within normal range. But in my head, I'm like, but I'm not normal. Like, I don't feel normal. And so then the way that it was explained to me was how I just shared. And that made a lot of sense. So I share that because I think it's important when women are going in and you advocate for yourself and you get those test results, you can advocate for yourself again and challenge. Like, I guess I'm in normal range, but like, is it optimal? Even Google what the optimal ranges are because it's got to be published somewhere. So just a PSA to women out there to continue to advocate, get the tests, look at the results, and understand them for yourself. Okay, so at the beginning, you talked about how food was a huge factor in your healing journey. Can you talk a little bit about what it was that you changed?
So it was actually quite a drastic change because I really didn't know how the foods were really impacting my body. So I learned that I needed to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, frozen as well. Organic was always best, but it's not always possible.
I do find
Um,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can find like fruits and vegetables where you're eating the skin, those would be best organic, but also eliminating processed foods, like things as simple as processed deli meats are actually not so great for our hormones and our body systems. So eliminating that and going to single foods, so like chicken, turkey, beef, and not adding the extra sauces or coatings on the meats and that sort of thing. So just really pulling back and going to the basics.
That's interesting because when I had to do my like clean eating, I didn't actually think of it that way, but I had to just do meat and there was like no dressings, nothing. And I never really understood why. I mean, now I know like it had the oils that you shouldn't be consuming and all of that. And then it really changes like your palate.
It really does. Things as simple as like adding olive oil, replacing, the sauces with something like that, it can actually reduce your inflammation. So it was really reducing inflammation and taking out the inflammatory foods. So something as simple as water can contain endocrine disruptors because our municipalities or our cities, they're filtering out the water, but they're allowed to have small amount of these chemicals in the water. So I didn't realize that those were actually getting into my body and impacting my endocrine system. That's what they're called, endocrine disruptors. So it impacts the thyroid and all of these systems in our body. So I changed my water. That was one of the first things that I changed. I use like a spring water,
Okay.
or you can use like an RO water, but that really strips all of the minerals and nutrients out of the water. So
Reverse osmosis strips out
yeah,
minerals. That's
yeah,
what I have. I feel like in the United States, it's like a trendy thing. It was like distilling for a while, and then it's like reverse osmosis is the new thing to do.
yeah. And it is good. It's good to use, but you just want to make sure that you're getting in nutrients through other ways, through your nutrition. So it is good water, that's for sure.
I never knew that there was endocrine disruptors in your tap
Tap
water,
water. Yes.
which I guess if you think about it, how could there not be?
And I think some people think or want to drink the tap water because there's minerals in the tap water as well.
Mhm.
But we can get those minerals in different ways. We can get them in through our foods, through good salt, and that sort of thing. So we don't need to focus on getting those minerals through our tap water. We can get them elsewhere.
So clean eating is literally fresh vegetables and fruit. And I think you give the listeners permission, organic when you can. Like
Yes.
prioritize. If you're eating the skin, make sure it's organic. But like sometimes things aren't seasonal and you can't get it. I'm having a really difficult time actually with fruit locally. That if it
Hmm.
is organic, it's like just not good even. That kind of gives me a little permission to, if I'm doing fresh fruits and veggies and I can't find organic, at least I'm giving myself and my kids fresh fruits and veggies, and frozen's okay. And then the meat. What about oils? Because I keep hearing about this. Like, what
Yes.
oil should you be using and should you not be using and trying to avoid? Because I think they cause inflammatory responses too, right?
Olive oil is a great oil that is anti-inflammatory. Omega 3, any oil with omega 3s in it. So flaxseed oil contains omega 3s.
What about avocado oil?
Avocado oil is okay. We prefer, as a holistic nutrition consultant, to get the oil directly from the avocado. That's the
Okay.
best way. So we try to go back to what did our ancestors or what did we do hundreds of years ago with these new different types of oils and everything. We just need to be mindful of, is it good for us or is this something new that's a fad? So
Mhm.
I would leave it up to you to decide if that's something that you want in your household. A lot of people do have avocado oil, but like I said, we like to get it directly from the source, which is the fruit.
So try to avoid veggie oil, canola oil.
100%. Well, to be honest, I look at what we should be using, not necessarily what we shouldn't, because what we shouldn't is a long list of
That's
things.
true.
So if we go to olive oil, anything with flaxseed oil, and then get it directly from the source. So from the source of the food.
Okay, so a lot. And also, I think in any situation where you're trying to do better, just start small, right? You
Yes.
don't have to take it in all at once because environmental factors are part of this too, but we won't get into that. I think you can see huge shifts in just the food that you're eating. Like you said, you saw a huge impact.
Yeah, we could talk a little bit about the environmental exposure, just how that although we think it's outside, it's environmental, it does seep into our food and our water. And so being mindful, like for example, pesticides are on these fruits and vegetables, and environmental pollution gets onto our food sources, and then we ingest that. So it
Mhm.
does at the bottom line impact our endocrine system. So where we can make small steps and try to reduce that, it's all about baby steps and not being hard on yourself when maybe in the past you made a different decision. But I do want to talk a little bit about skincare and some of the products that we use at home. That's another thing. Although I focus on nutrition, part of holistic nutrition is looking at the whole body and what we use for tools in our kitchen and what we put on our body ingests. And so it's not just food, it's really the environment as well. I would say focus on foods first, food and water, getting that nutrition in. And then if you can expand it to like your household products, like air fresheners, candles, body lotion, hair, like shampoo and conditioner, soap, all of these things are being ingested by our body. And
Mhm.
so the way I look at it personally for myself is, would I eat it? If I wouldn't eat it, then why would I put it on my body? And so if you can go into looking at buying products, well, would I eat that? Well, it sounds kind of funny because I wouldn't eat that perfume or drink that perfume, but then why are we putting it on our body? Because it does impact our endocrine system.
Yeah, it's not single layered. It's not just the food, all these factors, right? And I don't mean to diminish it at all because I do, I'm very, very passionate about personal care products and cleaners because I witnessed firsthand how they disrupt my respiratory system, my endocrine system. But I've been on a 9-year journey. So I've done all of those things slowly because it can be super overwhelming. I want to kind of wrap up today. If the listeners, if you want them to take away one thing from our conversation, what would you want that one thing to be?
I would say that it's really listen to your body. Your body has been sending you red flags for a while, and just tune into that and listen to that. And if you don't feel right, even with people telling you, everything's okay, you're normal, just don't give up. A few things that I have to recommend is the easiest thing like that I can think of is like going onto social media. It doesn't cost anything. Look for people who you can follow and learn for free to start with. Listen to podcasts just like this one. Join free groups on Facebook, follow people on Instagram. I think a lot of people feel lost or like they don't know where to go. Just keep reaching out to people. I just want to urge you to like connect with people who have maybe gone through what you've gone through and have actually got to the other side. And if they have like books or like this podcast here, connect with them. This is what I discovered, at least for myself. It's really helped me. So that's the one thing is just don't give up. Keep going.
I actually love that message. That's how I found you. I was looking for someone who can come and talk to my listeners about thyroid health. And I did exactly what you said and was like trying to find people to connect with and then see who I felt connected to and listen to their content. And I do think it's important because when you think about hundreds of years ago, they never had the benefit of social media. So the feeling of being alone probably was compacted, but you can go on now and connect with someone in Canada who you're now talking and recording a podcast with about a really, really important topic that women all over the world are dealing with. So that is profound advice. So thank you. Thank you so much, Kathy, for today. It's just been an absolute pleasure talking and really getting a better sense of what my thyroid does and how complex it is with all the systems in my body. I think this is such an informative conversation, and I really hope it helps women listening to take those first steps, right? Whether it's asking better questions when they go to the doctor, making small shifts at home with food, with products, or really just simply taking a look at their health in a different way. And those who are listening, if you feel like you've been struggling for a while, my hope is that our conversation gives you a little bit more direction and a reminder that there are answers. You just need to look a little bit deeper. Your body is always communicating, and when it comes to your thyroid, those subtle symptoms like the fatigue, the brain fog, feeling off are not random. They are signals. So start paying attention. Ask the questions, support your body in small, consistent ways, because when you begin to understand what your body is trying to tell you, you can create that opportunity to address what's underneath, and that's where things start to shift. So thank you for being part of Women's Wellness Authority. If you found value in our conversation today, please share it with a friend. Follow, leave a review. It helps more women find this space. And until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and most of all, stay well. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Women's Wellness Authority. If today's conversation inspired you, shifted your perspective, or sparked something within you, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who might need it the most. Have a story of your own or something you'd like to share? I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Women's Wellness Authority. Please note the content shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider regarding your health and wellness decisions. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and most of all, stay well. Thanks, everyone.